First Peter 3:15 says, set apart Christ as Lord in your heart. Always be ready with an answer or a reason for the hope within. Give it with gentleness and with respect.
Tell me what you think was meant by the hope within.
What I think Peter meant is that as believers, we don't grieve without hope. We don't live in a purposeless, just immaterial world. There's a God who's created us and who's conquered death and evil through the resurrection. And for those of us who believe in him, regardless of the pain and the hurt we see around us, we always have hope that a better day is coming.
Faith, I think, is an additional human need. You're just given the predicament of being a human being, trying to be one without faith, I think leaves a big void that can lead to all kinds of problems. So do you think those two things are tied together?
Well, I do. I mean, Jesus was asked, what's the greatest commandment in the law? And he said, love God. And he said, love other people. So we have been made to be in relationship with God and to be in relationship with other people. Now, to be in relationship with God, that requires faith. Now, that's not blind faith.
Right.
That's not believing something without evidence. In fact, I think faith is trusting what we have reason to believe is true. I grew up hearing apologetics in the defense of the faith.
Right.
So when someone starts pressing us and asking us tough questions, how do you know the Bible's true? When we take the time to know as Christians what we believe and why we believe it, it builds tremendous confidence and a willingness to engage people lovingly and thoughtfully with very different views than our own. I think we live in a divisive, argumentative culture.
Yeah.
It's us versus them. And I think there's reasons for this. One reason is I think there's a lot of brokenness and hurt in relationships. We've seen suicide and depression rising. I think we also just live in a culture that's so rushed. We're so busy and we're so distracted. And we also are so afraid of political correctness that what if I say the wrong thing? I'm going to get attacked and shamed. I mean, I grew up in a Christian home, and my father, I mean, he's been in ministry over 50 years, and he's written over 150 books.
Wow.
I went through a period of doubt in my life where I had a lot of questions. And I remember sitting down with my dad, not knowing how he's going to respond. He spent his whole life defending and proclaiming the truth of Christianity. His son's like, yeah, I don't know if I buy this. So I sat down and I said, Dad, I want to know what's true, but I don't know that I'm convinced Christianity's true. I felt like I had to be honest with him. He looks at me, he goes, son, I think that's great. He goes, look, I didn't raise you to just believe something because I told you. I raised you to follow after truth and to seek after truth. And wherever it leads you, embrace it. Seek after truth. That's something my dad has just hammered into me. And he always tells me, even in politics, read both sides before you make up your mind. Right. And I think the only reason we look at people as enemies, the only reason we don't listen more and we get so angry is because we hear one side of the argument. If you take the time to listen to people, at least understand where they're coming from, then it's much harder to be in this argumentative, he's the enemy, rather than just loving people in the way that Jesus said we're supposed to love people. Jesus said, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. But this isn't a blind faith. This is actually a reasoned-based faith and belief system. That's what sets Christianity apart. That Jesus died, was buried, on the third day rose again. And we have consistent early testimony that this historical message is true. And the first people who saw it were all willing to suffer and die for that belief. That's powerful.